Wouldn't it be nice if life was always this straightforward?
Now, we all know that flirting rarely happens in such an obvious way. What's more likely is that a guy is going to be flirting with you and you don't even know it. Here are the 7 subtle ways that guys flirt with you that you may never pick up on. Number 1, he's looking over at you. Now, you may say, that's not so subtle, but the reality is most women, when they see a guy looking over, think it was just by chance. They don't think, oh my God, he thinks I'm attractive. They think, well, he was probably just looking around the room. He's not really attracted to me. And they give it all of the wrong meanings. Think of it this way. If you caught a guy looking at you once, chances are he probably looked at you 3 or 4 times before that and you didn't see it. So quick tip, if you catch a guy looking over at you twice, feel free to flash him a little smile. Number 2, he was far away and now he's close. So this is a guy that maybe you first noticed when he was across the room. Now all of a sudden, he's a few steps closer. And then before you know it, even though there's 5 empty seats at the bar, he seems to be right next to you. Now, it may not be as extreme as that, but the point is, when somebody likes you, you can see them on the other side of the room, and all of a sudden, 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, they are closer to you. Chances are that wasn't an accident. Number 3, he finds excuses to walk past you. Now, it might be that he's sat at a table with his friends, and he can't just get closer to you. So what does he do? He decides to go to the restroom 3 times in the space of 20 minutes. He finds an excuse to be in your general area walking past you. This doesn't mean he's actually going to do anything when he walks past you. It just means he's hoping that by walking past you, there's a greater chance that an interaction is going to happen. Which leads me to number 4, the no-tooth smile. This is when a guy doesn't actually smile and show teeth like this. He walks past you and instead, not wanting to give too much away, but still hoping something's going to happen, he looks at you and does this. For the man who's not quite ready to say hello, how are you in a stationary and audible fashion, he'll go for number 5, the Driveby High. He'll walk by you and do something like this. Hey, sort of mouths a little. Now, before you judge this too harshly, for this man, it's actually more than he's giving to anyone else in the room. He might have just walked past 20 people and barely given them eye contact, and to you, he feels like he's doing more. Number 6, he's in your eye line. He knows you can see him. And in this moment, he's doing the, I'm doing something cool and important, but I'm really looking at you, but I'm not really because I'm doing something cool and important moment. He looks like he's sending an I'm a big boy important businessman email, but what he's really doing is trying to look cool and distracted at the same time as getting you to notice him. By the way, if he's overreacting to what he's seeing, it's a bit too funny, he's smiling a bit too much, he's speaking a bit too loudly to his friend on the phone, then you definitely know he's trying to flirt with you. Number 7, he says literally anything to you. For example, he walks up to you and says, hey, is the restroom this way? Oh, it is? Oh, okay. Thank you. He could have asked anyone that question. By the way, it doesn't have to be sexual, it doesn't have to be flirtatious, it could be the most innocuous, boring question in the world, but he chose to ask you. Now, to that last one, or to any of the 7, you may be saying, just because he did that, it doesn't necessarily mean he likes me, and wouldn't it be kind of arrogant and narcissistic for me to assume that every time a guy does one of these things, he's secretly interested in me? See, I would argue that if you went through life always assuming that one of these 7 things, when a guy does it, is a sign that he's attracted, you have everything to gain from that and nothing to lose. Because you're not gonna, as a result of one of these things, walk up to a guy and say, I like you too, by the way. No, what you're gonna do is you're gonna give him a little bit back in response, if you like him. So if a guy looks at you, you might give him a little smile. If a guy walks past you and says, hey, how are you? You might actually respond to that and say, I'm fine, thanks, how are you? If a guy asks you something like, where's the restroom? You might take that moment to say, it's over there. I like your shoes, by the way. In other words, you can give 1% more than you would normally give back. That's what creates momentum in the right direction if it was already there. And sometimes, even when it wasn't, let's just say for a moment he wasn't flirting flirting with you, but in that moment when you're a little warmer to him, he suddenly decides to look at you a little differently. So it can even pay dividends when he wasn't flirting with you and you were wrong about it. You're not going to take giant risks because of these 7 signs. You're just going to do a little more than you normally would. You're going to have your own subtle signal to throw back at him. So you have 2 realities to choose from. One, where you assume that no one is ever attracted to you, no matter what little sign you get, and you shut opportunity down before it ever begins. Or the other road, where you assume that when a guy does one of these 7 things, there's actually a chance he might be attracted. And as a result, you give a little more back to him, thus creating opportunities everywhere you go. Enjoy the subtle art of flirting, and I will see you in next Sunday's video.